One of a Kind with Rob Van Dam is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
One of a Kind with RVD is presented by Get Blitzed, and you can get 15% off your order when you head to get-blitz.com and use promo code RVD. Get 15% off.
Cebu started saying, "Hey, did Paul call you this week?" I said, "Paul who? Paul Heyman. He didn't call you?" "No, he didn't call me." "Dad, damn it! He said he was going to call you." And he go, "Hold on, I'll call you back." And he'd hang up.
So guys, feel free to ask a question. Our super chats are down currently, but feel free to use the questions, and I'll keep my eyes peeled on them. So we got a couple here. Frankie from last week, he asked some good ones last week. Let's see what he's got this week. Which is more so about ECW's greatness, Paul's genius or letting guys be themselves? What was the journey? Okay, and the second question, what was the journey from WCW to All Japan? Let's start with the first one, Rob. Which is more so about ECW's greatness, Paul's genius or letting guys be themselves?
I think it was, I would say, Paul's genius, because a lot of us didn't know what our strengths and weaknesses were without him pointing that out to us. It wasn't like it's often reputed as being where everyone just had a free-for-all to do whatever they wanted, because not only you got to have some kind of structure, but I mean, not everyone is going to be that talented. And I mean, you'd have people saying, "Well, hey, I want to be on for 45 minutes. How come Steve Carino and Tommy Dreamer get to be on for 45 minutes and I'm only on for 15? That's not fair." And, but Paul would help us realize our strengths and our weaknesses. He would guide us. He was good at showcasing that and bringing the best out of all of us. So it was the captain leading the ship for sure.
And the thing is like Paul was so good at knowing, letting you guys be yourselves in a lot of ways, and knowing where the strengths of you guys came into play and how to prop that up in a little bit more and make it edgy too in the same turn of it. So good stuff. Good question.
Paul has also had some clients that probably the worst thing he could do is let them be themselves, and they kind of need to be tamed. And I'm going to leave that at that. But he's good at that too, and not letting them be themselves.
It's a good point too, Rob. And then his second question was, what was the journey from WCW to All Japan like?
So I got the booking to go to All Japan before I got the job with WCW. So I started with WCW in December, and my first trip for All Japan was going to be in February of '93. And I knew that it might be an issue, but I threw it out there on the table when I got hired by Bill Watts. WCW worked with Japan, but their partner was New Japan, which was Inoki. All Japan was a giant Baba-san, and they were competition. And so I knew it might be an issue. Bill Watts said, "You're already obligated. You can finish out any of your obligations, but then that's it. Don't take any other bookings." So already, even way back then at 22, 23 years old, I'm jumping territorial walls in a way that I would do pretty much throughout my whole career, and that's why I became known as Mr. Monday Night, for that same reason. Bill Watts never said anything about me going to New Japan, but I came back. It was a 15-day tour in February of '93. Mm-hmm. And January, February, March, April. By May, I was done with WCW, and I quit. So I don't know. I don't know if I would have went for New Japan eventually, which I have now, but it was after I became a much bigger star more recently. And at the time, I knew that I got over with Giant Baba, and I could go back there and wrestle for way more money than I was making at WCW. That was one of the reasons that I quit with WCW. It was all about the money. One of the reasons was because I was getting paid a lot more from All Japan, and also because I was getting a lot more just on the independent scene when I could control my merchandise and all kinds of stuff. So it was all money. And also at the end there, when Ole Anderson took over, they weren't doing anything with me except for beating me up. So boom, thanks. See you later. Bye-bye. And that was it. I went to, when I did my first tour in All Japan, I knew I would be coming back and doing WCW because I had signed a contract with them about 2 months before the actual All Japan date. But it was Danny Crockett specifically that would pull me aside and say, "Hey, kid," this is how he said it. He said, "Kid, if you ever bring this up, I'm going to totally deny it. But you have a job here. If you want it, you can call your shots. Baba loves you." He told me that on the first tour, like when we were in Osaka. Yeah. And I'm like, man, he would deny it? Like, you wouldn't back me up, bro?
You wouldn't say that?
But also, he helped. He had a lot to do with helping me feel confident and also understand the situation there, because I didn't know that, And then he was always saying, "Oh, I got to put you with my cousin." He was talking about Mike Lazansky. He always wanted to put us together. Good-looking kid, just like you. That's my French Canadian, my accent. Anyway, he eventually did do that, and we tagged a couple times, but not for most of my All Japan career, though. And then I had that awesome match with Phil LaFont, Danny Crockett, same guy, in Tokyo with the Budokan. That was my first singles match in the Budokan, and I'd been touring with All Japan for 2 or 3 years at that point. If it's 95, then I guess, well, either way, because it was, anyway, 2 or 3 years at that point. And that was a really big pivotal point for me. That was like one of those matches that really helped elevate me. I learned a lot working with him, like in the ring, learning, like he the way that he would pause or react, or his timing, the way that he was connected to the crowd. Like, I don't remember paying enough attention to the crowd before that, but the way we had that match, and then the way that he made everything mean something, and I understood that, So he gave me some gifts that I carried on for the rest of my career.
How often did you work with Danny? Was that like overseas there? Was that
quite a bit? But it was usually tag matches. Him and Doug Furness were the tag team, and so a lot of times it would be me and whoever, me and Michael Zansky did it. Me and Bobby Bradley did it. So a lot of matches would be 6-man tag matches. It always seemed really random. Like throughout my whole time with All Japan, it was never like about storylines. It was all more about the athleticism and the matches, and then that built the storylines, because, if you saw Kabashi and Masawa really tear it up, fuck yeah, you're going to watch the rematch. It was about that. There wasn't like skits and stuff. Sometimes they would film the post celebration when they're pouring champagne over their head in the back, and they might scream a couple things at the camera. That was about it. The whole company wasn't about that. That's another reason I had no experience talking on camera until I got to ECW.
Wow, yeah, that's
a little experience. I don't want to knock NWC and South Atlantic and IWF, but you know what I mean, though. I wasn't comfortable with it.
Yeah. Okay, this is gonna sound like a novice, dumb question, but
I love it.
when you
Love
were
it.
when you were making good money in All Japan, uh, what really prompted you then to just go to ECW, or what prompted you to not stick with All Japan?
Well, so I didn't. I was able to do both. I didn't leave All Japan for ECW.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I was able to do both. In fact, the reason that I actually turned Paul down the first time that he called, and I didn't like the offer that he threw out on the table, and I knew that I was making a lot of money for All Japan, and so he was. I felt like he was only calling me as a favor to Sabu, because Sabu kept saying, and Sabu was there already, and I'm
Hmm.
wrestling for All Japan and doing some indies. So this was kind of just like another indie, except these guys have TV. They're actually doing something, but it wasn't a lot different than if I would have worked for Joe Savoldi's IWCA or whatever, where, except it's TV.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I didn't know that much about it until Sabu was already there trying to tell me about it. And he'd been working with the area and the tri-state wrestling maybe since '93. Like he was always talking about how things are different there, and how he was getting over there. I remember talking about Kevin Sullivan and that Joel Goodhart, I believe is the guy's name.
Yeah, yeah. That's right.
Yeah. And he was always talking about bringing me up there. And I think it was like '93, because I remember first I was so green hearing him talk about this place that's really cool to go work for. And anyway, in '95, Cebu started saying, hey, did Paul call you this week? And I said, Paul who? Paul Heyman. He didn't call you? No, he didn't call me. Damn it. He said he was going to call you. And he'd go, hold on, I'll call you back. And he'd hang up. And that would happen like every few weeks. And, I told him to call you. He needs to bring you in. You'll get over big here. And he just needs to see you. Damn it. Let me see. He said he was going to call you. And anyway, I really didn't care if he called or not. Yeah. And then when he did call, I don't know why. I mean, it seems like I would have been excited to be on TV and stuff, but I just remember it was like, well, if he calls, it calls. If not, then he doesn't. And then, and Baba was telling me at the same time to choose my calendar. That's the best way to put it. They did at least 5 tours. I think they did more than that. I can't remember how many tours a year All Japan would do, but he said for me at this point, because he was good at, giving me a raise. He gave me another raise. Must have been 3 raises unless one was a big jump up. But he eventually, sometime in there, he said, you come back to me with the dates that you want to work. We'd like to have you over here. But they knew that I didn't love being in Japan. It was hard for me being young and green and stupid. I didn't like seafood, and it was just really long tours. And like I've said in some of my stories, I was such an introvert and so shy that I didn't really even fit in on the bus load of all these big monsters that have these war stories, about traveling around the world and having each other's backs and bars and shit like that. If you haven't heard, I got comfortable finally when I got to hook up with the hoods, because they would have hash, and that was like my escape. I would smoke hash, which is a product of marijuana, let's say. It's in that family. And anyway, Doc, who was Steve Williams, actually thought that I was, and I don't mean to say this, so let's say slow. I don't want to offend anybody, but, he thought that I was a little bit retarded, I think, or autistic, something to that extent, because we were all in the room and I wasn't really talking much. And they're like, remember that time in Russia when those mobsters broke in and we had to, I'm just like, I was in the high school band last year. That's what I felt like. And, I didn't really enjoy it. I loved the matches. I loved getting over. I loved the money. but that was it. I was, didn't eat when I was over there for the first several years. And anyway, they said, you tell us when you want to come over, when you want to be booked, because they had regular tours every year. There's like a 15-day tour in February. So I always loved that. It was the shortest one. The longest one was in November. That was the tag team tournament. That was 5 weeks. And so, they did regularly. And anyway, Paul wanted me to go up there and work with Mikey Ripwreck and get Mikey over. And so I was like, no, because of the money as well. But also, I'm not going to come in there and put this guy over. What are you talking about? And anyway, Sabu's like, did he call? I'm like, yeah, he called. I told him, fuck off, He's like, what? He goes, you wanted to do what? Oh, damn it. He'll call. I promise. He's going to call you next week. Whatever. And then when Paul ended up calling back and then brought me in under different terms, and I still wrestled for All Japan, though. So I started in January of 96 with ECW, but I still wrestled for All Japan until 99 when Giant Baba passed away. And I've often said 97 myself in interviews, but I've realized and fixed that in my mind. It was actually 99 when he passed away. And then I did one tour for Mrs. Baba, which a lot of the boys didn't get along with Mrs. Baba. That's why they left with Misawa and started Noah, because they were there out of respect for Mr. Baba. When he passed away, they didn't get along with Mrs. Baba, so they ran Noah to compete against, and it was Misawa was the head of it, and a bunch of guys left with him. And that's the history of Noah and All Japan and RVD.
Wow, how about that? Man. Okay, so that makes sense. So once you started making more good money and they were getting you over in ECW, you were like, okay, I can kind of taper a little bit of my dates with All Japan and focus more. So plus the aspect of you not loving being in Japan all the time was another added element for you to just kind of be like, hey, I'm committing more to ECW now.
And ECW was fine with me doing trips to Japan too. They didn't care. Cool. Sometimes I would miss some dates, and they weren't gonna try to compete with it.
Yeah. Absence makes the heart grow fonder too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something that we always thought was the more exposure you get, the more you help the whole product, right?
Yeah, right.
That's how we always felt. Unless you do something that downgrades it.
Right. Yeah, RVD's worldwide. You're worldwide, man. How validating did that feel, too, when Danny Crockett told you that Baba would love to use you anytime you wanted to? Did that feel pretty good, being a young star and being like, holy shit, but like, if Baba likes me, I know I'm doing something right.
Yeah, it really did. I got Danny's number like a year or two ago from somebody, and I don't know if I've called him. I haven't talked to him. If I did call him, I didn't get an answer, but I don't even think I've called yet. And I was just thinking about that earlier today, synchronicity, thinking, about actually calling him. And it'd be good to talk to him because he probably doesn't know. He probably doesn't know that I give a shit. He helped me out a lot. And it wasn't like he and I were like best friends or anything, you know what I mean? Like he always treated me like I was a kid and like he was a veteran. But he just really did a lot. He was always entertaining too. He liked. He made me laugh a lot too. Like some of the jokes that he's done in the dressing room that I've heard. I heard Pat Patterson say this same joke. The gender changed, but this was. Oh my God! I couldn't sleep last night. Oh, Danny. I had this chick banging on my door all night, wouldn't stop. Bang, 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 bang. I'm trying to go to sleep. Bang, 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 bang. Finally, I got up. I let her out. Another one. He used to always, when he would start to get dressed in the dressing room, he drops his shorts down when he's sitting there, and he go, "Oh, okay, guys, who's shit in my drawers?" And what really made me laugh, and I took this from him too much, it was something I ran with too much because I was just young and stupid, and some people I was with didn't appreciate it at all. But when we'd be at a restaurant, Usually they wouldn't speak any English, depending on where you're at. So we're in a diner and the waitress comes over. That's just like, oh, yosemite, oh, onigashimasu, and then Phil would like point at the menu, Danny, he'd be like, yes, did you douche today? Did you douche today? Oh, I wasn't sure because of the smell. Okay. And they cocked their head like a dog, like,
Yeah, what are you saying? I don't know what you're saying.
had me rolling as a fucking 22-year-old.
22-year-old, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he did it. He taught me a lot too, though, about wrestling, and he was really, really, really good. It was like he taught me that it wasn't America that had the best wrestlers. It was just they had the most fame with what was then, like the WWF, and it was like they had the characters that they were pushing back then. Danny used to talk about, you see this? You see what Matt Bourne's doing? He's a clown. Doink the clown now. He says, oh my God, when someone asks me what I do now, I tell them I'm a car salesman.
That's so, oh man.
Abby Abdul the Butcher used to call him the Master.
The Master.
What are you doing today, Master? Or no, I think the Master, Professor, I don't know. I guess I'm not really sure about that now that I think about it. I think it was the Master, but something that implied that he was the best at what he does, because his matches were always like really entertaining, and when he felt like being funny out in the ring and making the crowd laugh and stuff, he would. But he obviously could go real hard, and damn, man, they don't make him like that anymore.
Man, you're telling. Listen, when you're talking about Danny Crawford, I first heard about him when I was reading either Bret Hart's biography or another book about Calgary wrestling. And I'm gonna say this. I don't know if it's right or not, but I think he was in the first ever ladder match in Stampede. I think he was.
I don't know about that.
Pretty neat. But I know he was kind of like, I think he was, if I remember correctly, kind of like their Intercontinental Champion and just really, really good at, obviously, as you're saying. So, yeah, he had a good look too. I liked his look too. Cool stuff. Yeah, that's great stuff. Oh man, yeah, I love hearing about those guys that don't really get a lot of credit, but they definitely.
Right. Yeah, it was crazy to see like these. I love the style. Everything I said about I didn't like about being in Japan, but I did love the wrestling style.
Yeah.
That was, the business. I liked the money. I liked the crowds. I liked the wrestling style. I went for several years until I finally learned to appreciate everything about it. You know what I mean? Like, it was like eventually it was Sabu when our paths crossed in Japan. He taught me that it was okay to spend a little money to go and eat really good. And then after that, we ate yakiniku all the time. And all of a sudden, Japanese girls were super hot to me. And for some reason, when I was 22, I was just so young and stupid. I was like, oh my God, they all look the same. Like, where's some blonde hair, some red hair, or something? And it was just, there was a lot of fishiness that just turned me off about Japan. But I love the style always.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that.
That's awesome.